what you talk about is, this helicopter parent madness that went on, that this is the first generation that we're seeing the results now of children that could do no wrong, received, praise no matter what they did. We're seeing that generation now, and they can't handle the stress. That's problem number one. Children are too fragile to handle anything.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So So why did things get so weird? Why did they change, beginning with the students who arrived on campus right around 2013, 2014? It's a mystery. In fact, our book, we really frame it as a social science detective story because this new morality emerges on campus right around 2014, 2015. The whole morality of safe spaces, trigger warnings, microaggressions, all those things. And so we think there are several causes, one of which is social media, which we just talked about, and I'm sure we'll come back to. But the other big one is, as you say, it's that we did this to our kids trying to protect them. We all want our kids to be safe. We all want our kids to be successful. And oftentimes, good intentions backfire. I think this is a lesson that conservatives are more attuned to than progressives. So beginning in the 1980s and especially in the 1990s, we clamped down on kids' freedom. We began overprotecting them. We got this ridiculous idea that if we ever take our eyes off our kids, if our kids go around the corner to a park and there's no adult watching them, they will be kidnapped. They will be snatched, abducted. So, there was a huge crime wave in the 1970s and 1980s. And when you and I were growing up, and, any of your listeners who are over 40, when we were growing up, even though there was actually a lot of crime in America, you went out and played after school. You went out with your friends. You were in someone's backyard. You walked around town. We rode our bicycles from around the age of 8. So that's the way childhood always was until the 1990s. And even though the crime wave was actually ending in the 90s, things were getting safer and safer in the 90s. That's the decade in which the social norm changed, maybe not everywhere in America, but certainly in urban and suburban areas, it changed so that kids never got the right to practice being independent or self-supervising. And then when they go off to college, are we surprised that they're having trouble being independent and self-supervising?
It's amazing. Some of your recommendations, and one of the reasons I like this book so much is because you not only diagnose the problem, the last third of the book or quarter of the book is, okay, so here's what we do. And your recommendations, it's crazy that you need someone like you to say, you know what, have your kids ride their bike unsupervised, down the street. Send them to the store for a gallon of milk. Have them do things, that are unsupervised. My grandparents would have never, my parents wouldn't have even understood that advice. Of course, that's what you do. But now, I said this on the air the other day, and I said, I remember being maybe 6, 7. We had a little store, about a block and a half away from our house, and my mom would give me money, and she'd say, go get a gallon of milk. Nobody thought twice of that. I said this on the air, your advice, and everybody's like, I don't know, man. I mean, that would be dangerous. I mean, you know what I mean?
That's right. Yep.
And we're people who know the stats on crime.
Yeah, no, that's right. And so I think the way to think about so much of what's going on in our society, and I can't wait to read your book because it's so easy for us to think that there are good people and bad people. It's so easy for us to think that someone did this or people are hurting our kids. But really, I'm a social psychologist, and what we specialize in is understanding the way social forces act on people. So it's not that they're necessarily good or bad; it's that we're all really social creatures. And many people have traced this back to the origin of cable TV in the 1980s. When you and I were growing up, there were only 3 networks. The news was only on half an hour a day. There wasn't the chance to be submerged in stories about several kids go missing every year in America. I mean, more than that, but in terms of like true abductions by strangers, it's extremely rare. But It's only in the 1980s that we could all be immersed in that story all the time. And so it was the change in the media environment that was one of the reasons for the huge freakout. Another was declining family size. When you and I were kids, there were a lot of families in my neighborhood that had 5 kids. And now, I live in New York City. I have 2 kids. Most of my kids' friends are only children. It's rare to have a sibling. So when parents have just one kid and they're surrounded by news stories about kids being abducted, they don't let them walk to the corner store anymore.